Saving Grace Ministries, transforming the lives of thousands of individuals recently released from prison. Over 600 individuals released to parole supervision will come through the Grace House program each year. From its beginnings as a single 5-bed residence in 2001 to the current 15-facility, 108-bed program, the Grace House Transitional Residence has become a statewide model reentry program, serving over 650 clients per year in Buffalo, over 300 per year in Rochester, and 50 per year in Elmira. Founded by Pastor Terry King.
Saving Grace Ministries began in 1999, and it began with a vision to house homeless men returning from prison who really needed to have accountability, shelter, and opportunity. And what we've grown into is a number of facilities that house and care for men and women returning from incarceration, as well as now an outreach to young adults, children, and those that have really been marginalized and have a trajectory of life that would lead towards incarceration, and we're able to impact them through sports, recreation, affordable housing, and providing long-term housing, and a number of other outreaches that really is amazing to see what God has allowed to happen in the journey of Saving Grace.
What they did for me is when I got out, they gave me, I was there, they gave me a place. I was living there when I got on parole. And then when I got off, they gave me a job, and they gave me the opportunity to put faith in me to do the job. And at the time, what they saw in me, I don't know, but they just saw a little something that they gave me a chance.
During my time, I was like, I got to change. I got to find better ways how to become a man, become a human being, become more an asset. It just helped stay focused, and not worry, because I used to worry a lot. I worry about things and try to make things happen, and if you have God on your side, you don't got to do that. You just turn it over to Him, and you have to work your faith in order for it to manifest into something.
We're here to not be their voice, but to give them a voice and let them rise. And I go back to not judging, but holding them accountable. And it's to win the love of their heart, to say, look, we believe in you. That this mental health diagnosis does not mean you're shackled to your past for the rest of your life. You can be set free. Christ can set you free. And in our journey, we're here to introduce that love to them that maybe no one else has ever spoken into their life, that they have a meaning and purpose in community. And so we see someone, and we see it all the time, that comes bitter, angry, and in that position, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months later, they're here. They're part of the family, part of our culture. They don't want to leave. To see those individuals now, 70+% staying out of prison and becoming meaningful members of community, that's it. That is just what community is about.
Recently, Pastor Terry King celebrated 20 years of Saving Grace Ministries at a gala event. Hundreds of supporters, sponsors, and individuals who have gone on to great success as a result of their connection to Saving Grace Ministries gathered to raise money, awareness, and recognize the amazing work of this organization. Now, from Riverworks in downtown Buffalo, Pastor Terry King.
And so today, I stand before you grateful that others in this room believed in me and helped sponsor my right to have my conviction with executive clemency through the relief from civil disabilities executed, so that my rights were restored. So I have the right to drive and the right to vote and carry a U.S. passport, and the privilege to serve on a committee with Denise O'Donnell and many others in this room. And at one point in my beginning at Saving Grace, was invited to the White House to share my story and journey and learn about building this work. And I share that because we started as a facility 20 years ago for 7 people from prison. And I had come to know the Lord in prison. I surrendered my life, and I got out with $40 and a set of clothes. And I stand before you today, a man and a family that has more in life than any human being deserves to have. And I'm grateful every day because I get up not to serve me, but to serve Him and to serve others in need, that they will have a voice and a place and opportunity that others in this room afforded me. And I remember when Grace House opened, and we filled the house right away. And for many, many weeks, parole would come, and I think Gino Russi was the regional director and the bureau chief of Buffalo, and some of the parole officers would come and say, we have a gentleman, and he has a mental health diagnosis, and we have a gentleman, and he has this diagnosis. And I kept saying no, and no, and no. Are they a Christian? Do they believe? And I had these parameters. Then one day, I got woken. I got a moment with the Lord, and he said, I asked you to build the house. You don't get to pick who lives in my house. That was a defining moment, because I remember I called the parole officer, and I said, his name was Ken. I said, we'll take that individual. Within hours, he had 3 more cases. Next thing I know, they were asking us to go to 10 beds, to 15 beds, to 25 beds, to 16 facilities, to housing 110 nightly, to affordable housing, to now a deli, bakery, to the new fire hall and community center. And I want to roll back 10 years later. I'm at a conference sponsored by Denise O'Donnell, and she's sharing about reentry and the new models, and Saving Grace is fitting into housing and care coordination. And she talked about School 53. She talked about, at this symposium and conference, the group was speaking about zip codes and blocks in the Buffalo community, and how we could predict where certain individuals coming out of these areas would someday be potential people to come into Grace House. And that deeply burdened me. I deeply was troubled that these individuals in 3rd and 4th grade that were being targeted, that were illiterate, would one day be residents of Grace House. And the Lord said, we got to fix this. And I want to just roll forward a few years. You know, we're growing, and Grace House Rochester, they're here tonight. Pastor Jim, amazing work you're doing in Rochester, and Alyssa in Elmira, New York, and seated work now in Tampa, Florida. And when I thought, man, we got all this going on, and this is a lot to handle, Pastor Jerry Gillis calls me one day and said, hey, there's a building over on Ferry. It's owned by another agency, and they want to sell it. And you know, you might want to take a look at it. And in the meantime, our partners, the Buffalo Sabres, are here tonight. I commend them, because they're investing in Buffalo in phenomenal ways, not just in the hockey team, but in people in our community. And I thank you. And at that point, they were asking me, would you consider working with us to build homeless housing for veterans, with children and veterans? And I'm serving on a task force for homeless housing. And I'm thinking, well, that's not going to, I've got so much going on. No, no, no. You know how sometimes in life you say no before the tug says yes? And so I surrendered, and I called Jerry back, and I said, we'll go look at the property. And it was on Ferry, 347 East Ferry, the old Humboldt Y. I'm on the 2nd floor of the building, walking through, and I'm telling in my mind, no, Saving Grace is not going to be involved. We got too much going on. And I got to the 2nd floor, and the woman said, well, we have this School 53 and the children that struggle. And I said, excuse me, School 53, and the memory came back about having this presentation about School 53 and the kids that were struggling. And I looked out the window, and the Lord said, you're going to be involved. And I called a rep from the Sabres the next day, and the team came out, looked at the site, and said, oh, this is our site. This is a site that we can put the homeless housing project. And I thought my job was done. I'm getting in my car, and I'm going home. A couple of weeks later, I'm meeting with the team, and they said, yeah, we want to do this, and we want to work with Saving Grace. We want to fund Saving Grace. And so today at 347 East Ferry is a community center, $4.5 million invested by the city, the Sabres, almost $1 million, corporate partners. Many of you are in this room. We have 16 affordable housing apartments on the 2nd and 3rd floor, and we created the Resource Council of Western New York. It is Jerica Delaney, Executive Director, Janice McKinney, who serves on the board, and many others, and Saving Grace, the Sabres partnering. And so today, Northwest Bank, we have the pool, the gymnasium, we have the after-school program, the at-risk children who are kids that are from School 53 that come every day now for literacy and help and education and parents, and it's an amazing sight to see our involvement with. And then we expanded, and the city signed a land use agreement so that we could take over control of Perkins Park. And we have now constructed with the NHL a hockey rink, inline hockey rink, and next to that is a flag football youth facility sponsored by the NFL. You know, folks, this is amazing what we can do when we work together to create a better Buffalo. And I just say that, you know, we have the housing for those that are struggling, and now we're impacting the lives of the children. And my heart's cry on my heart is that these kids that we're now touching will never see a bed at Grace House and have opportunity to be successful members of our community, an opportunity they never had. And you in this room are making that possible. And I just thank you from the bottom of my heart. I don't know what the next 20 years are going to bring, but I plan on being there until the Lord calls me home, because I just love what I do, and I love touching and serving people and giving them opportunity and hope. You know, it's hard work, but you know what? When God is in it, who can be against it?
When we return, meet some hometown heroes who have made Saving Grace Ministries a success. Saving Grace Ministries has been helped by prestigious supporters, including Kim and Terry Pagula, owners of the Buffalo Sabres, and other major companies like Northwest Bank.
But my name is Trina Burris, and on behalf of Northwest Bank, we want to thank all of you for supporting the mission of Saving Grace Ministries tonight. At Northwest, we certainly like to acknowledge and assist anytime we can, but with Pastor Terry and the Saving Grace folks, it really is special. Right from the very first meeting, Pastor Terry told me that it's important that they help the marginalized, and you know, just all the comments that he's made here tonight. And boy, since I met him, he really walks the talk. He really does. And we are just honored, number one, that you asked us to be the presenting sponsor tonight, but we are certainly thankful and blessed that we were able to do it.
I know that the kids in those neighborhoods are really going to be welcomed, and they're going to enjoy that opportunity to get a chance to play sports, including hockey, which I thought that hockey rink just blew me away. I couldn't wait to support that with Trina's help. We are so happy to be part of that. Northwest Bank, we're a proud community bank.
But I always wasn't the nicest person, and I struggled. But this woman always ministered to me in my darkest times. And she never failed to introduce Christ or want to see me rise to a better place in life. And I thank you, Esther, for walking and for being there, and for introducing me to my wife, Cheryl. Cheryl, would you stand, please? You know, I couldn't do this without her, and we're in this together, and we're in this journey of life. I would like Esther Golias to join me. And I would like Eric Spriegel from Northwest Bank to join me on behalf of David Pollock, a dear friend. And, but I want to just share a little bit of the backstory on the Ron Heinrich Award. In 1999, I shared my testimony one Sunday night at the Tabernacle Church, and you're with us, faithfully supporting us. Pastor Tommy Reed had me share, and I was in a darker place. It was overwhelming. I wondered if I wanted to continue this walk, because the construction of Grace House and just all of the issues that were going on, and construction was just really overwhelming. And Ron came up after hearing me preach and share, and he said, I don't know you, but I want to support you and help build Grace House. 9 months, through his business and his contacts, he worked to build our first 7-bed group home. And he labored for siding and drywall and volunteers and roofing. And it was amazing, because he lifted a burden. And Ron was that humble servant who gave of his life and his treasure. When Grace House opened, and my office for the very first day, Ron had had twins born that were but 3 weeks old. Ron walks in the back door. Ron sets down 2 little bassinets. He said, "Here's the bottle. Here are the diapers. I'm going to go put the water tank in." And I thought, what? And he left. And he put the water tank in. He took his babies home. And the following Monday, Ron came to Grace House. He came in the back door. And Ron had an Expedition, brand new car, 2 baby seats in the back. And he said, "I want to show you the car, and I got car seats for my babies." And I went out, and we hugged, and I said goodbye. And Ron got in his car, and down Eggert Road, he had a medical issue, and he died. And he's never left my heart, because he was someone that walked when others maybe wouldn't, but he never lost sight of the journey. So David, who gives his life to Buffalo for the betterment, to hold us accountable, and continues to help us rise, and to Esther, for giving your life. This woman ministers to people wherever she is. She wants them to know the love of the Lord, so that there's a better place for each of us, no matter what we're overcoming, that we can rise to a place of betterment so that we can have a better community. With that, Esther, we love you, and the Ron Heinrich Award is presented to you. And for David Pollock, Eric, would you accept this on our behalf? God bless you.
When we come back, inspirational speakers motivated to making a difference. Guest speakers celebrating 20 years of Saving Grace Ministries include Denise O'Donnell, a respected attorney who has held positions in New York State and with the Obama administration as Director of the Bureau of Justice Assistance and New York State Commissioner of Criminal Justice Services.
So when I was at the Bureau of Justice Assistance working in Washington, D.C., and overseeing the Second Chance Act there, I interviewed a candidate for a very high-level position in the Department of Justice, overseeing the reentry program there. And we had many great candidates, but one woman really stood out. She had worked her way through college. She was a single mom. She had a master's degree in criminology from the University of Cincinnati, which is one of the leaders in this field. And she really had started as a CEO of a well-regarded reentry program. And it was clear that she had a lot of experience and knowledge and insight into how to support people as they transition back to the community. And I asked her, as she told me about her theories and her ideas, how she was so sure that they were good ones. And she said, well, when I returned from jail, these were the kinds of things that made a real difference in my life. And of course, she was the most qualified candidate. She got the job. She's a great and accomplished leader in the national reentry movement. But when I read an article about her appointment shortly after she was appointed, and this was a big deal in the Justice Department, to appoint into a federal position someone who had actually been incarcerated, although she managed to finally get conviction impacted or removed. There was a headline in the local paper, and it said, "Ex-con in charge of overseeing the Second Chance Act." And it actually made my stomach ache, or maybe it was my heart that was aching, to see how such an accomplished woman who had done so much with her life could be labeled by the media. And I started to think about that. We really have to change our language, folks, if we are going to change the trajectory of the millions of people who have had justice involvement in our communities.
Bishop Darius Pridgeon from True Bethel Baptist Church and president of the Buffalo Common Council.
So on the way here, well, earlier today when I was thinking about Terry and thinking about everything that this organization does and how it is uniquely different from any and all other organizations that do this kind of work in Western New York, and I'll tell you why. I just want to tell you this little story, and I'll be out of your way. I just recently, I had a country property, and I was telling some of my pastor friends who live out in Batavia, I would have to ride past their house to go to this little country house I had. And on this property, I had, if any of you have ever seen Sanford & Son, I had a Sanford & Son pickup truck. This is the truth. I bought out there by Batavia one of the most raggedy looking trucks you could ever see in your life. And when I got this truck, because I only got out to the place maybe once a month, I mean, I would get, and I don't know if any of you all have these problems, but I would get mice that would get up in the engine, tear up the engine, they would get in the insulation, stay there all of the winter, and then when the summer came and I went out to the house, I started up, and things wouldn't work correctly on that old truck. So I would take it to the expensive places, you know, the places, and they would put a analytical computer on it, and they would tell me everything that was wrong with it, and it would cost a lot of money. And I kept thinking to myself, I can't, this isn't working for me. And so there's a guy on Route 5, and he's got a garage, and I decided one day when the light wasn't working, when the engine was making noise, when I had a little rattle in the front, I said, instead of me taking it over to get the computer analytics on it, I'm gonna see what this guy can do. So I walked in, this is a true story, I drove in with my little Sanford & Son truck, and I told him all this stuff, and he never pulled out a computer, never. He walked up to this truck, had me start up the truck, and then he just started telling me what was wrong. No computers, no red tape, just telling me what was wrong. And he said, you're gonna have to leave it here for a few days, and when you come back, I'll have it running like it was new. And so when I came back, sure enough, the truck is running, I'm starting it up. It still had some bumps and bruises, but it was running. All I cared about, get it back on the path, get it back on the street. So I asked the guy, I said to him, I said, how did you fix this without all the computers? How did you fix this without all of the analytics, without all of the, you know, the nice dressed up guys? He said, well, I was able to fix it because I've had cars that were raggedy in the past. I've had cars that have seen their best days in the past. And so I learned how to listen to the cars so that I can fix them. The reason we're here tonight is because Terry King has had experience with what he's doing. And he is not just some type of analytical guru who knows it all, but he is one who just listens, and because he listens, he is able to take those who are often considered the last and the least in our community, and by listening, he's able to change their lives, get them back on the road, get them to the road of recovery, and get many of them back into the workforce, and to get them back to a place where when you look at them, you know that they've had some bumps and bruises, you know that they've had some rough days, you know that they've had some hard days, but if they stop by Saving Grace, when it's all over, they come out better than when they went in. Ladies and gentlemen, will you thank God for Saving Grace Ministries? Will you thank, yeah, I make noise. Will you thank God? I'm going to leave this mic, but I just need you to know he did go to college. He went to the University of I've Been There. He got a degree in experience, and he leads with love. Thank you for being here tonight to support somebody who listens. God bless you, and God keep you.
Thank you. Darius Pritchett, everybody.
I don't shy away from sharing my story or my journey, but I've learned what it is to be an overcomer. I've learned what it is to have not, to be questioned, to be challenged, to be grateful. I thank you for this new life, for the opportunity, and as I sit down, to say thank you, because I consider every one of you my friend. God bless you.
And I'm afraid but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Oh, do. See, I go to my brother. Oh, and I say, brother, help me please. And he winds up knocking me down. Oh, I'm back down on my knees. And there's been times when I thought that I would last for long. Oh, but now I know I'm able. Oh, thank God to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Hey. And it's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Hey, yes it will.